Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Ham Radio DX. I'm Hayden VK7HH. Welcome this evening. Well, it's this evening here in Australia anyway at the moment. It's about 8 p.m. here local time. So good evening to wherever you are joining from. We've got quite a good interview tonight with Peter VK4EA. So we look forward to having a chat with Peter tonight. But before we begin, I just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping and just say thank you to some of the newest channel members on the Ham Radio DX channel. We've got Philip W0RHP. He joined as a contest station today. Steve K4EA, also from Good Game Ham Radio YouTube channel. So check out Steve's YouTube channel, Good Game Ham Radio. He joined as a QRP operator today. Also, thank you to our new patrons. So in the week I started up the patron again, so just check out the link in the description for our patrons. And also if you want to join as a YouTube channel member, the join button is below as well if you'd like to do that. So our new patrons, Tony VK7VKT, he is an Ultimate DXer patron level. And also thank you to Rod, Chris Holm and VK Radio for your continued support of the channel as Ultimate DX channel members. So welcome everyone. We've got 13 already who have jumped on board. This is being streamed on YouTube and also on Facebook. So leave a thought in the comments. I can't see that we've got Chris ZL4RA radio runner in the chat, complimenting the beard. So thank you very much, Chris. It's good to have you in there. Okay, let's introduce Peter VK4EA. Peter is located in Queensland, near Brisbane. So welcome, Peter. How are you?
Well, thanks, Hayden. Thanks for having me along.
It's great to be able to have a chat to you this evening. I think I've been meaning to actually reach out to you for quite a while to be able to do this, so it's good that you've been able to spare some time this evening, and we can talk about some of your interests and how you got started in radio and a few other things that are happening.
Well, it's my pleasure, and appreciate your support there, Hayden.
That's good. So so Peter's. I met Peter last year at the face to face anyway at the Gips Tech convention, and for those that are. Yeah, sorry, year before last, that's right. It's last year's Gips Tech convention, of course, 2020 was put off due to COVID, so 2019, I apologise, you're right. And we met there and we had a good time there. And Gips Tech is a microwavers delight. It's a convention for those who are interested in VHF and above activities and experiments. And you're probably one of the more prevalent microwavers in VK4, I would say, Peter. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about that tonight. But first, I thought I'd ask what sparked your interest in amateur radio, and what age did you, or when were you first licensed?
I was probably when I was doing my paper round when I was 12 or 13. I grew up in the Gap, and I used to deliver the community paper to a guy who had this big tower in his front yard. And I was interested in CB at the time, so I got talking to him. And it turns out he had a limited license, and he was it's back in the 80s, and the only repeater in town was the Gold Coast repeater. And he used to do callbacks. He used to drop in on Sunday mornings and hear him do the WA News callbacks, so back in the 80s. And then I got a CB, and then I thought, this is pretty cool. I had a few contacts all over the country and on 11 metres, and thought, I'll go and get my ham license, and worked out. So I did all my novice study, and then I had to try and learn Morse code, and that got too hard. And then I went to uni and got forgotten about until probably about year 2000 when they decided to drop the Morse requirements, because at the time I was pretty uninterested in HF, but to get on HF you had to do Morse. And but then they dropped the Morse requirements. I upheld all my university stuff and did my regulations, and was licensed in 2000 as VK4 TGV. And that was mainly operating mobile, HF mobile, with a Codan 9323. That was my first radio. So that sort of aligned with my outback remote travel stuff. So the land mobile has always been interesting, because one of my first jobs was actually assembling Scout tracker radios, putting them together. So all crystal locked 8-channel RFTS school of the air type radios, built like brick outhouses, but not very highly tech. So that really piqued my interest then to get into HF, because we could talk all over the country in 8 megs. It was awesome.
Yeah. So you used to do a paper run, and you come across a guy who had a big tower in his front or backyard. So he was a CB operator, you said?
No, he was a 2 meter beam.
Oh, a 2 meter beam.
Yeah. So I worked out later. It was a big 2 meter beam. The Mount Glorious repeater wasn't on at that time. Yep. So the only 2 meter repeater in the southeast Queensland was the Gold Coast one. So he needed, and he was a limited call too, so he couldn't get an HF. So that's where I got to know him, and I saw his workshop and went, oh, this is pretty cool. He's making stuff and getting on air and doing stuff. So I went to a few hamfests and got interested, but then got distracted by other things called life.
Yeah. So you started to run HF Mobile, and what sort of happened after that? You got
discovered
interested in higher bands, or?
Yeah, APRS actually piqued my interest, and I was active on the local repeaters that the club ran. That was pretty cool. Like, the repeaters were a lot more active back then, so didn't need mobile phones. You can talk to a club member anytime on the 2 meter repeater. And then started learning about the repeaters, and probably the first fatal weekend was the first John Moore I went to that Redcliffe Club ran, and it was a pretty significant exercise. 80 metres to 10 metres, all QRO, so all 400 watts or 395.95 watts or thereabouts. And working all those stations in close proximity, there was all the filtering and stuff that we ended up coming up with was fascinating for me. I loved it. And the first, I turned it on a Saturday morning thinking, oh, these guys are just going to be sitting around drinking cups of tea. And I had my tent in the car, so I might stay after, it turns out to be good fun. And then I started drinking beer. And I went, I found my people. And camping, beer and radio for me was pretty cool. So that was the start of doing the big deployments out in the field, and that sort of got my interest in emergency communications too, because that's what field days are supposed to be all about, is to get out portable and to prove that you can operate off grid without any support. And so that's operating portable became a big part of my interest. And then HF got a bit, well, I shouldn't say boring, but I lost interest in HF because it seemed like shooting fish in a barrel. And that's where my fatal mistake was going to a president's lunch when I was the president of the Redcliffe Club and seeing Doug Friend, VK4. I've got mental blank now. OE, sorry. Yep. He had this little 10 gig modified, I think it was a 290, I can't remember. It was just a crystal locked, very, very basic FM radio. He'd modified and put a 10 gig multiplier chain in it with a little horn sticking out the side, and that was his 10 gig. I saw that and went, that's cool. And so I blamed Doug. But I also had blamed Alan Devlin, VK3 XDK, not XDK. XPD. I've got terrible memory. Been working all week, you can tell I'm tired. So between Alan Devlin and Doug Friend, they're solely responsible for my distressed credit card.
We always have to have someone to blame, don't we?
No, it's been great.
It's never our fault.
If you couldn't ask for any better Elmers or mentors with this sort of stuff, they're just so keen to pass on knowledge and experience and support. And and Russell too, VK3's ZQB, were brilliant in the early days for us. They really encouraged us up here in VK4 to go and push their records they set back in the 90s. And we've been steadily working on that. And Kevin UH has had some fantastic success with that. And same with Doug Friend and Stefan, VK4 CSD. He's doing 241 gigs and stuff like that. So it's extraordinary what these guys could do, and it's just inspirational. And you mentioned Gippstek. Gippstek is one of those places, and Kevin had been going for years when he was living in South Australia, and he said to me one day, you've got to come down to this weekend. It's brilliant. I go every year. He couldn't get anybody else in the club interested, so I'd tag along one year. And he said to me on the plane down, if you don't come away from this weekend inspired, you haven't been listening. And he's absolutely 100%. You think you're doing some pretty clever stuff, and then you go to that event and you go, okay, these guys are on another level. They are doing some seriously clever stuff. Like Rex, VK7 REX is just truly inspirational with some of the stuff that he's done.
Rex Moncur?
Yes.
7MO, yeah.
NMO. Why am I saying REX? It's because his first.
I think you're thinking of VK4REX.
Oh, yeah, no,
That's also Rex.
Yeah, Rex, and he's no longer active anymore. But certainly between him and Doug, we're just, it's amazing stuff. And to be able to make something like that is very, very cool.
Well, I went to my first Gibbs Tech, which was 2019, and I was a bit disappointed that last year's wasn't on because I did enjoy the first one that I went to, and there was a lot of stuff that did go over my head, but there was also a lot of stuff that I learned as well. And one thing that I keep in mind is we had a discussion in 2019 about the solar cycle, wondering whether we're at the bottom of it or not. I think Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, did that talk, and now we know that we're at the bottom and we're now on the way up. So the next few years of Gibbs Tech should be quite interesting, especially when we start talking about 6 meter propagation.
Yeah. Some of the TV modes and stuff will be fascinating to see what happens. Well, incidentally, when I bought my cart in the beer this week, I thought of you, Hayden, and it reminds me of a story when I did a lot of work travelling. So homage to the Tasmanians who were there.
That's the Launceston beer, though.
Well, I've got a story about that because I went down for a week down to Hobart to fix up a salesman's screw up, and so that's what engineers do, is they fix up a screw up. Yep. And I went down. It was Aurora Energy, so it was a pretty big customer of ours. You can imagine we've got to keep them happy. I think they're Tas Networks now. And
they've had many different names, but they're Tas Networks now.
Starting with Hydro and Aurora, and now Tas Networks, and
and I think Hydro's dropping off too. So,
so I was down to Hobart quite a lot, and I was fixing up this particular stuff up, and I said, "Oh well, I'll take you all out for dinner." And they said, "Okay, we know a good place," and I ordered a Cascade. Then I'll do the right thing and get it. I didn't know they're all from Launceston, and they gave me the filthiest looks. And they grabbed a Cascade, tipped it down a pot plant, and said, "You're not drinking that stuff around us." And I had no idea that there's this North-South Tasmanian rivalry.
Yeah. So viewers who probably are not fully aware, the state that I live in is divided into the north and the south, and there is quite a rivalry. So the beer that Peter's drinking is from the north, and there is a different beer that is from the south as well. But it looks like you've got the Bogues flavour anyway.
Yeah, I've got
the Bogues. Yeah, I've had Bogues. It's pretty good. It's not too bad.
Yeah, well, it's pretty good for you for a Hobartian to say that.
That's okay because I'm not really a beer connoisseur anyway. I don't drink it that often. So, but no. Just a quick comment. There are some people in the chat who are coming in. I do not have the ability to show YouTube comments at the moment due to issues with the way that I set up the stream. So, if you would like to comment, please do so on my Facebook page, which is working. So, I can say hello to Scott VK4CZ, who says, "Charge your glasses, get ready to watch." We've also got Mikhail Lindberg, SA3RIT, who is in Sweden. So thank you for watching. David W2E0XWX has tuned in from the sunny UK. And Peter says that he's here, so that's good that you're in the chat. And also Chris says, "I can't imagine any North-South Island rivalry." Well, yeah, New Zealand, I guess. I wonder if, I guess you do have a North-South rivalry.
They do.
Going over there.
And they have a different dialect too, Hayden. Like the southern, the Christchurch dialect is almost totally different to the Auckland one.
I suppose it's a little bit like, Queensland and Tasmania. We've got different dialects and different, it's all over the country, really.
Well, in North Queenslanders, they talk about the speed of a glacier.
Yeah. We got Richard, VK7ZBX, who's on Facebook. Thank you for commenting on there. And Alan as well, VK4EA. So thank you for watching this evening as well. But yeah, just comment on Facebook if you'd like to ask Peter a question or ask or just make a general comment. Do it on that. So I apologise, I can't change that now that we've started. 2000. So you were licensed in the year 2000. That would have been around about the Solar Cycle 23 peak, I think, or around about then. So HF would have been fairly alive, and it would have been fairly easy to make contacts, I reckon, on the HF
10-15 metres was great. Mobile, it was awesome in the afternoon. It was good fun.
Because that was a higher peak than Solar Cycle 24, I think, as well, because we've slowly gone downhill over the last few peaks. But yeah, I have heard stories of the 90s and around 2000 there, where 10 meters was really going off. So hopefully we get another repeat of that. So you progressed to that. So, but before we go into sort of microwaves in depth, what's some of your achievements that you've managed in the hobby? So maybe I guess you've done contesting. You mentioned the John Moore Field Day, and any sort of records that you achieved, or
the only thing I can claim is I equalled a Queensland record on 24 gigs that was set with from Howes Knob, just near Maloney, to Doug VK4EA in the Borders Ranges, just over the New South Wales border. And I did that with a 600mm dish and a barefoot transverter. So yeah, that's all I can claim. Unfortunately, I've been active a lot, but I just haven't really been active in setting the records. Even though we've all got good intentions, it's just work and weather and other things get in the way.
Well, that's okay. I guess some of the other achievements that I was also thinking of too was that you're a member of a lot of different radio clubs, and you've had various dealings with them, and you know, what are some of the positions? Because I guess that they're achievements in themselves as well, and also your work as a VE as well.
Yeah, well, I've only been a VE quite recently, last 2 years. Did the VE thing, so I did my American license before I went to an 8-week trip to the US in 2019. So yeah, it wasn't long after Gippstek. So September, October, I spent in Cuba in the US. And while I was over there, I was able to use my KQ4PS call sign, and also got my VE application through. I was only about 20 miles away from W1AV, I think it is, the station, the club station, AW.
W1AW, yeah.
AW, that's it. Yeah, it's in
Connecticut.
Yeah, Connecticut, but my travelling companions weren't all that keen to make a bit of a diversion away. We're in big motorhomes too, so it was a bit difficult to park the damn things because being American, they're big. So that was yeah, it's cool to be VE. I haven't done a lot of assessments. We did one a couple of weeks ago at the Sunshine Coast, and I have to say the US assessment system is just so slick. It is amazing. And then a few weeks before that, I participated in a remote assessment session. And again, that's super slick how they do that. It's like you in the IT industry, you would have done the Microsoft and the CCNE and stuff like that. You know, they do that in a room with a camera. It's the same sort of thing. It's all online, and they know the result in 10 seconds. So that's pretty cool. And I was an assessor for the WAA, and then the change over to the AMC as well. I've done, and that's one of the pleasures I get is to introduce people into the hobby and say, okay, you've passed, or I can't do that now with the AMC, but you know, welcome to the hobby, and I hope you do well. And you've now got a library card to one of the biggest and richest libraries in the world, and you can explore all sorts of different facets of the hobby. And I think they get a bit starstruck with that, and but they've gone away, and I can pretty confidently say most people I've assessed as foundations have progressed to advanced, which is good. I get a lot of pleasure out of that. So with the Redcliffe Club, I've held every executive position in the club over the 10 years. So I had to give it away for a little while when I was living in Singapore and traveling a lot for work overseas. And I'm pretty keen not to have an exec position in that club for a while because there's other people who should be doing that sort of stuff. I joined the SEQATV group as well because I had an interest in ATV, and I'm currently looking for a home for the ATV repeater. I thought we had one in Vancouver, but unfortunately we don't, so we're still hunting around. So I do like the ATV stuff. That's pretty cool. And then the Brisbane VHF Group, of course, which is a small but sort of dynamic group that are interested in the higher frequencies. So it's sort of, you know, it's like-minded people talking about stuff that they're doing. Like on Wednesday night, Doug took us through how the Kuhn 47 gig transfer has an image reject filter in it and how they do that. So that was interesting to dig down under the sheets of that. I'm the treasurer of that club at the moment, which is not very much work, thankfully, but still, I guess, a position. And the other thing I'm quite proud of is, which is not amateur radio related, but it's the land mobile network that I've helped build, and that's VMD 750 Austravel Safetynet. So that's for travellers with land mobile HF radios. And I'm the current vice president of that. I was a secretary for a while and treasurer, and we built the network from 3 base stations to now we've got 6. And getting funding from the Queensland Government gambling grant to fund the Mariba base, and now we say our network is complete. That's pretty cool because you can send messages and get your GPS positions. There's an app you can use on your phone to chat to members via your phone to the radios and vice versa. So they're non-amateur radio operators, but you can phone their radio like a telephone using cell call. That was my main interest for a long time, was that land mobile stuff, and making phone calls with your radio is something that you really can't do in Australia with amateur radios. It's not the phone patch idea that really took off. So yeah, I love that stuff. All the technology to link the stations all to get all the bases together using virtual machines and Asterisk and VoIP technologies and stuff to get the voice traffic over into a core router, into a PABX, and out to the real world was it's good fun.
Yeah, I have experimented with All-Star and Asterisk before, and it takes quite a bit of time to get things up and running and working.
I can recommend 3CX, Hayden. It's really good.
Yeah. And so now, so that's three groups that you're an executive member of. So I know that I'm a executive member of just one club, so it's a real credit to you that you have the time and the energy and the effort to put into three separate clubs as well. So that's
the vice president thinks it.
Yeah.
It's just in case the president falls over and gets hit by a bus. But today I did organise a Zoom subscription for him.
As a vice president myself, I know what you're talking about. But no, and I mean, like things such as treasurer, and also you mentioned too, secretary of some of those clubs.
They're time-consuming roles, and and that's why I always cut the treasurers and secretaries a bit of slack. And whenever someone gives our treasurer a bit of a hard time, I always lead to his defence because I know how hard it is.
Yeah, they're and sometimes they can be thankless jobs as well, or feel like that anyway. So, also want to say good morning to 2E0UKH Digital Analog Ham. Thank you very much. It must be getting it's morning over there in the UK. So good morning to all of our UK viewers who are tuning in this morning. We've got 32 who are watching on the stream. VK3NFI in the chat says I can relate. Speaking, I guess, about clubs there. So. It really can be a tough job sometimes. So we're going to have a look a bit later on at some of your gear and also some of the projects that you've got on the go, but we'll talk a little bit about your microwave. So you're active up to 47 gigahertz. What made you interested in the higher bands, if you wanted to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, the challenge. The construction, not that I'm very good at it. I wish I was better at it, but I'm getting better. It's a construction challenge, and I have to admittedly, when I have one or two contacts, and I'm satisfied then that I've got the gear working. I should get out active more and simulate access on these bands more. So the 47 gig was a challenge, although I did cheat a bit and bought the DB6NT transverter. There's still some extensive plumbing you got to do and I bought the relay as well. But dealing with waveguide and flanges and all that sort of stuff and bending it the right way was very, very nerve-wracking. Trying to bend the waveguide in the right angles and stuff, and then the mounting, because everything's so delicate, I had to support everything properly, and then deciding on the feed, machining. So I got into machining the feed holder and stuff. That was cool. So I used my lathe for first time in anger. So I love all that sort of stuff. I'm a maker. I'm an engineer by day and a maker by nights and evenings when I get the energy. Even at work, I'm a maker. I just love making stuff, and I built the house basically around the workshops. We did the extensions around the workshops to make sure I had enough room, and much to my wife's disgust, who says, "Well, where's my workroom?" Well, you didn't say you wanted one.
I think Scott sums it up here where he says nothing better than building something and seeing it in action. Sometimes you get more satisfaction out of the build and putting everything together than you actually do using it and making a contact.
Certainly, that's...
Sorry. Yeah, and when you finally do, it's just reward for all the hard work that you put in.
Yeah, and people and Scott's just commented just there. Now, he's another one. He's a bit OCD with his construction, and I get a bit embarrassed when I get my gear out compared to Scott's. And same with Kevin and stuff. So it's all cable ties and hockey straps and stuff. But I have a bit of fun.
It works. That's the main thing. But yeah, you're completely right there, and also, yeah, as you say, the challenge when you start to get to some of those higher bands, it does become a real challenge. And repurposing older gear, I know you mentioned about using the Kuhn transverters instead of, maybe building your own. The transverters that I've got, which I mean, I've only been the highest band I'm active on 3.4 gigahertz, but I use the SG Labs transverters, but then everything else around it was, putting the preamp in, putting the power amplifier in, and the switching and the sequencing and all that sort of stuff. It just takes time, but it's quite rewarding. And then, of course, that's just before you get to the antenna. So
yeah, you buy the building blocks basically. But what I do enjoy is that I can buy these building blocks, and like I've got the SG Labs 2.4 and 3.4 now, and I use them barefoot in Northern Ireland in February. When camping, I just took those two things and a couple of patch antennas, and I was surprised how well they worked. They're just extraordinarily sensitive. And if you want to buy a black box, buy an IC-705. That's those things. But and like the 24 gig I think was the one that challenged me the most so far. But then I just started today. While I was on a video conference for work, I turned my camera off and I started doing sketches to mount the 122 gig board that I bought from VK3CV. So that's the next project. But I've got a list of projects so long that I've started way too many things as usual.
I think that's just the ham's way, isn't it? You start something and you never get around to it.
I'm very, very satisfied that I've got the 2.4 and 3.4 capability now. At least I can go out barefoot with the patch antennas and the 705 and a little battery and operate. And we were going to do that last weekend, but we had 250 millimeters of rain at my place last weekend, so that was just not going to happen.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, so for those who haven't sort of looked at or been interested in microwaves before, the good thing about it is that when you operate on, say, a band such as 3.4 gigahertz, the bands, or these sort of bands, are the ones that are in a bit of they're in a bit of a risk of being taken away from us as amateurs. I know that in the US they got 3.4, a part of 3.4 taken away from them, and I think they've got a small portion back. So getting more and more people interested in microwaves is a good thing. And you mentioned, I think you mentioned about the Icom as well. Yeah, so they're the two SG Lab transverters that are from Bulgaria, and they just, you can, as you say, you can just run them barefoot.
That's why you can get onto those bands. It's amazing. And he's working on a 5.7 now, so
yeah, good news. I'm waiting until he does a 10 gig version. That'd be great. But the 5.7 gig version will be good as well. But yeah, for those who are interested in getting in microwaves, I suppose the best thing that you could do is try, as a first entry point, is probably 1296 is a good band to try on.
Well, at least you can buy the radios off the shelf.
So the IC-9700, 1296, the SG Labs Bulgarian transverter also does it. He does a 1296 one as well. And then I think once you start playing around on that band and you realise just how far you can actually get on that band and how well it actually works, then you can start to move up in bands and experiment. So what sort of advice would you give to someone who would be interested in having a go at microwaves?
I'll find someone else local who's doing it if you can. That's the way I got motivated, was to see how cool it was and how it really is a maker type environment. So if there's anybody local doing it, and see if you can cook up with them. Otherwise, there's plenty of YouTube stuff happening, and plenty of Facebook groups, plenty of mailing lists to gain inspiration. Probably the first protocol, I would go to W1GHZ, Paul Wade's website. That's an absolute boon of information.
And there's also some further information too in the ARRL handbook, and also in some of their technical guides and stuff like that as well.
Plenty of books you can buy from the RSGB and ARRL if you want to get a. I certainly bought a lot of those in the past, and they give you ideas. Unfortunately, a few of them are a bit out of date now; they're a bit old, but there's still the techniques like mixing and filtering and stuff like that. Microstrip is, I find that the way that they do microstrip design is just, as a electronics engineer who did PCB design, and to think that a track can act as an inductor or a capacitor, depending on the thickness and the width, and the shape is just does my head in.
Yeah. So we'll show some photos of your microwave setups, but I suppose one of the other questions that I had was, what's your most memorable contact that you've had on any band or any mode?
I'd say that 24 gig contact I talked about before was pretty cool. Oh no, actually no, the one that surpassed that is that the WAA AGM that was up here at the Gold Coast a few years ago, and I had my 47 gig out for the first time, and I was talking to Ian Crawford, VK4EA-9, bouncing off the helicopter as it was flying along the Broadwater. That was something cool that I had never done before.
So the helicopter was line of sight to you both?
Yeah, it was over the water. We were on the other side of the water from where the resorts were.
Yeah.
And we couldn't hear each other side on because it's as sharp as lasers, these dishes. But we could bounce our signals off the helicopter as it was moving. So we're both moving our dishes at the same time, bouncing off the helicopter a couple of k's away. It was special.
How did you go with the Doppler shift on that?
It was cool. Yeah, it was interesting. But it wasn't that far away and it wasn't moving that fast. I guess that it wasn't that much Doppler. But yeah, that was kind of cool. Very, very cool. And then we're also doing stuff here though. Sometimes on 10 gigs, you can't work someone line of sight. And I always say point toward the CBD, and the CBD has been an awesome reflector, and we can bounce the buildings in the CBD and actually make reasonably good contacts using that as a reflector. So
yeah, we tend to do that. Yeah, we tend to do that here in Hobart. We've got quite a big mountain called Mount Wellington that we use to bounce off, and it happens in a similar way. It's quite interesting. That's pretty cool.
And then the rain scatter stuff is just something I haven't had a lot of experience with, but Scott 4CZ and Andrew VK4EA have had regular rain scatter contacts for the thunderstorms that march up from Andrew's way up toward us, from the southwest up toward us in the city. And so he's on the other side of the storm cloud, and Scott's regularly gone through the cloud and had enhancements. And it sounds funky, like it sounds auroral. I'm not sure what that sounds like in real time, but I've done a bit of rain scatter on 2.4, and that's been amazing how that lifts the signal. So that's some memorable stuff as well. Like, unfortunately, though, our storms aren't real good to be outside. You really want to be inside for them.
And it's quite funny listening to rain scatter, especially on FM, because it almost sounds like the rain is raining on your signal because you can actually hear it in the speaker. So. Yeah. But yeah, I've done a bit of limited rain scatter on 2.4 gigahertz as well, and it's quite interesting.
So because of that, I'm going these two transverters are going on the roof, and I'll have a home station on 2.4 and 3.4 for our summer storm season to work down at Andrew and other people on the other side of the city. That's the plan. And I've got the K3NG rotator controller.
Yep, I can see that.
And the rotator that I'm interfacing to at the moment, and that'll go up on the roof for the two grid packs. And that was cool. Last couple of weeks, Kevin 4UH and myself and Scott 4CZ have modified 2.4 gig grid packs to work on 3.4, and they work really well. It's a really easy mod.
Are these the commercial ones, a bit like in that photo in the background I've got there?
The exact same one, actually, the TP-Link one with that style of grid.
Good.
Everyone tells us that those bars are too far apart. That's rubbish.
I would very much be interested in the mod details, because myself and Richard 7ZBX have 3.4 gigs stationed down, or our stations running down here, and we have various antennas that we've experimented over time, some larger than others, but I think the one at the moment that we were testing was a large panel antenna, but if we can get those grids on 3.4 gigahertz, they're very much easily portable and much better to handle. And
cheap, $100, brand new, $100. So it's and you'll easily get 30 plus dB gain out of them.
We're waiting for 5.7 to become viable and cheap, and then we've got a multitude of the smaller grids for 5.7 gigs that we can use as well. So
there's plenty of like the old Ethernet link radio type dishes that are easily modified for that stuff, and they've got tremendous directivity.
And Scott also makes the comment, YouTube videos are available of the rain scatter, so if you'd like to do that, just Google his call sign VK4CZ, and I'm sure that you'll find his YouTube channel.
Yeah, actually, I was with Scott that day. We did 2.4 rain scatter up at a property behind in the Sanford Valley, and it was incredible. Actually, it was incredible.
Yeah. So that's your most memorable contact. So, do you have any other interests in the hobby? So you mentioned ATV and a few other things. Is there anything else that we haven't covered, or?
I had a passing interest in doing some mesh stuff, but I've just run out of time and energy to do that. I think that mesh stuff has some really good potential to be an alternative network. I love to develop it, but I've just got too much other stuff on the go. And we've got a range of 44 Class A addresses for Southeast Queensland assigned, but we just time and sites to get these places up, and it interests me to do that sort of stuff. What they do in the United States with that stuff is cool, and setting up a VoIP phone remotely and hooking into their Wi-Fi network, and looking at files and doing live video and making telephone calls is having some sort of network connectivity in the middle of nowhere interests me, because that'll have to wait until I've got a little more energy and time. This damn thing called work gets in the way.
Hello to VA3DLO from Canada as well, who's in the chat as well. So I know that some of your other interests, though, so you mentioned APRS before, but you've also had experience with putting repeaters together and also installing those too.
Yeah. For a while there, I was the repeater custodian for the Redcliffe Club, and luckily through my work, I was able to secure access to the Mount Glorious 147,000 repeater, which is the second ever repeater put in Queensland. So it is an amazing site, and the Brisbane VHF Group didn't want it anymore, so I managed to get access to the place, and we transferred ownership to the Redcliffe Club, and so I've improved that a bit. It's now a DMR ready repeater, VHF repeater, with a 4G modem hanging off it, and I'd love to be able to pull the switch and make it a DMR VHF at some stage. And we've got the 2 and 70 FM repeaters at our Wamuran site, which I got the grants for, to buy brand new radios and brand new coax and antennas and stuff. That was great to put together. Actually, working with brand new Andrew connectors and brand new Andrew coax was nice, rather than working with second-hand connectors.
Yep.
Getting them brand new out of the box and going, oh, they're silvery and stuff.
All
was
shiny.
Cool. All shiny, yeah. Well, they probably are still shiny because I put a good amount of butyl on them. And then I put a DMR repeater up there, not a DMR, a DStar, Death Star repeater up there as well, which Icom gave the club, which is very kind of them. But it was on the proviso that we put it on air, so I got that one on air as well, using a Raspberry Pi as a gateway. So that was interesting sort of exercise to get that going. And yeah, I know we talked about doing the All-Star. Was it the All-Star or the OzLink, VK Link?
VK Link.
Yeah, a while ago, and I've just run out of energy and time to do that. I've got another guy looking after the repeater now, and I'd love to be able to link one of those repeaters permanently to the network. We've had some interest from the club at Dalby Way, Bunya Mountains, to link one of their repeaters to our repeater, and that's a perfect way of doing it.
Yeah, permanent and also selectable if you really want it as well. But that works quite well. Maybe I'll have to build you up a node and post it up.
And the 6 meter repeater is an ongoing saga, and thank you for giving it to us again. But I have to let other people do it, and it's just taking time. Yep. We'll get it on air. The antenna's still up there, and and unfortunately, our site. They changed owners and they won't let us have power anymore, so it's all solar powered. So we have to be careful of our budget now, our power budget. And then it went flat after 7 days of poor weather the other day. So we probably can't afford to put any more load on at the moment.
Well, the 6 meter repeater that I did build for you, I'm pretty sure I stripped all the main board out and made it really low current consumption. So maybe that might help. But anyway, see how we go.
Unfortunately,
I know myself what it's like to try and have to keep up with maintaining repeaters. I had a stage there where I didn't have to touch it for probably about 1.5 or 2 years, which is actually good. If you're a repeater officer, you would know that you're almost at the side all the time. But I do have another job which I need to do to get the repeater up and running, so I should do that over the Easter break that's coming up soon. That might be high on my priority list.
I'd love to get the 6 metre back on before the tropo season starts, the end of this year. So that's definitely a goal, but whether I get there or not, it depends whose names get struck out on the ballot paper, which I think we'll talk about later.
Yeah, so, well, actually, that's probably the next thing that we were going to talk about anyway. So one of the things that you're also
Hang on, I've got a very, very important thing to do.
Yep. I think the very important thing that he needs to do is he needs to get another beer.
Correct.
So you've got a bar fridge there, and obviously
every shack needs a bar fridge.
Yep. For a full bar fridge, not just any old bar fridge, but
it's actually for my solder paste, but anyway, I'll put beer in it as well.
So yeah, we were talking about you are nominating for to be a WIA board member in 2021.
Yeah, call me crazy.
Yeah. So to speak a little bit about that, I know that your bio is available somewhere for those members who would like to read up on it. But for those that...
Yeah, it's Peter Parker VK4EA. He's put it up on his website on that temporary page he has, which has been great. It's also on Facebook. I haven't put it on my LinkedIn profile because it really isn't a professional interest at this stage. I don't really like to cloud my LinkedIn profile with that sort of stuff too much. But I'll probably upload it to my website and make that available. But I think it's been broadcast again on the WIA News this Sunday. So because the deadline got extended because of the postal delays, so there'll be a verbal one coming, and you can read the text edition anyway on the WIA website.
Did you want to summarise your qualifications and what you want to bring to the board if nominated?
I'm a professional electrical engineer. I work for Energy Queensland, which is the Queensland distribution company, electricity distribution company. Energy Queensland own Ergon and Energex Networks, as well as a few other businesses for unregulated work. I work in the substation standards area, concentrating on the SCADA and telecommunications parts. So it's all about substation automation. So auto reclosing and remote comms to the control centres to maintain and control the network is my thing, but setting the standards for that. So at the moment, I'm introducing a brand new device to EQL, which is a big change. We just ran a tender process. I helped with the specification and the tender process and finally selected a manufacturer, which is pleasingly, they make the gear in Brisbane, which is nice, and they do all the R&D in Sydney. So it's a Canadian-owned company, but they make it in Brisbane. So for me, having come from an electronics manufacturing background, it was really, really nice to choose someone that made it locally. So that's my day job. Is I'm working on deploying those standards, and probably people don't appreciate the effort it requires to change direction for a large business like Energy Queensland. So I can equate it to having a plank of wood in the back of a cruise ship and trying to change direction using that as a rudder. So it'll eventually happen.
I think they were using that plank of wood in the canal with that ship that's stuck in there at the moment.
I'm envy that job to get that thing out. So yeah, it's a big job, and I find it quite rewarding to make the changes. Being a very, very conservative industry, as you can expect. So yeah, I'm a registered professional engineer. That means I hold an RPEQ in Queensland, the Registered Professional Engineer of Queensland. I have, which I have to prove that I'm competent every couple of years and do CPD and not kill anybody, which is always a good thing. I've got a master's in electrical engineering practice, which followed a Bachelor of Engineering Technology, and before that did an associate diploma. So it's my qualifications are really completely asked about, because I did my AD, then started my degree, finished the degree, did my electrician's qualifications, so I'm a licensed electrician in Queensland, and then did my APRA cabling license, and then I did my master's. So it's sort of not quite how people do stuff, but it's handy to be able to change your own PowerPoints at home. Not that I enjoy crawling in ceilings. Big job I did like early this year, or late last year actually. It was refurbishing the Redcliffe clubhouse. So got a big grant, the COVID grant from the council, and put a new ceiling in. And Mark and Sear put his hand up to put the lights in. That's why I don't want to work as an electrician, because it's terrible work, crawling through ceilings and putting cables. Wow, and it's hot.
I know that myself, when I had the option of becoming an electrician, I did turn that one down in favour of what I actually did do. So
it is handy being an engineer and having an electrical ticket, though, because I can touch stuff, whereas most engineers, fingers off.
Yeah.
So before that, I worked. So I've been working there for 11 years now. Before that, I worked for a company called EDMI, which was based in Singapore, and they made electricity meters, so smart revenue meters. You've probably got one of those in your switchboard, Hayden, if you go to your switchboard.
I think I do, and I think it was switched over about a month ago. So
yeah. So I had a hand in designing that product. That's in your switchboard. So if you want to backdoor into it, I shouldn't say that. So that was
talk to.
Yeah. So Aurora was a very, very big customer of that company. I travelled the world, doing all sorts of training sessions and problem solving and fixing up salesman screw-ups. Living in London, and went to Israel a number of times, went to Iran a number of times, Africa. Lived in Singapore and Shanghai. Regular visit to the Philippines, not to where George Christensen went, and did a lot of work throughout Southeast Queensland, so Southeast Asia and China. So, but soon got sick of filling up a passport, and came home because Jane never saw me. So Jane is my wife, VK4JNC. She holds an advance call as well. She was pretty happy for me to be home, and the house is actually looking reasonable now. So it's maintained. So so 11 years at a GOC. It's been cool. I've probably got another 7 years of life before I'm going to end my working career, and then hopefully have some more time to do stuff, to enjoy my boating and four-wheel driving, because I really enjoy going remote as well, to Simpson Desert. One thing I said in my bio was that I wanted my life goal is to travel every road built by Len Bedell. So those who don't know who Len Bedell is, he built all the outback roads to support the atomic testing that the British did in the 50s in South Australia. And he bulldozed a lot of roads. One of probably the more famous ones is the Gun Barrel Road, because it's as straight as a gun barrel, and I've driven it a couple of times. But there's an awful lot more I want to explore of Australia, as well as the world. Like, I can't do that right now, so jump in the car and go for a drive, I think.
Yeah, you have to stay in the country, and even then you have to be careful where you go as well. But the bio that you did mention, I had Peter VK3EA put in the chat, but for those who are watching and would like to visit it, it is WIA2021.vk3ye.com. We did have a question from Paul VK4PWG. He says, what do you want to do on the WIA board? What are some of your visions for what you would like to do going forward there?
Always fraught with danger, promising stuff that you may not be able to achieve. Look, I'd really like to improve the relationship with the AMC and the ACMA. I think that's a really big thing we need to do as a hobby, as a service.
And especially too at this time with the changes that we've got that ACMA are proposing, it's a good time to.
And I know this won't be popular.
Closely with them.
I know this won't be popular, but I really think that we need to be talking to RASA. As much as there is some conflict there and some difference of opinions, you don't have to agree, but you have to at least have some dialogue. I don't think there's been any diplomacy in the world that's worked without some sort of dialogue.
Yeah, I agree.
And the big thing for me is support for clubs. I remember years ago when Michael Owen was president, it was great that he came up once a year and talked to us as a club president. I think that's been, it's the impression the clubs have is, do they have the support of the institute if they're an affiliated club, providing them resources, promotional materials, advocacy to the government, to state and federal governments.
And as you already mentioned too, one of the most important things too is trying to develop the hobby so that we can introduce new people to it as well. So
yeah, and
having that experience is a good thing.
Yeah, well, and without looking at the numbers, it's clearly evident that we're an aging hobby. I'm probably rare because I'm just into my 50s, and you'd be even rarer, not even hit that age, Hayden, at your age. So. It's for me, it's always distressing that we can't attract young people who are interested in technology,
and retain them as well.
Yeah, and the WIA have been bleeding members as well. So I would like to understand why those members aren't renewing, and why, and also there's obviously a lot of vitriol for people who have deep-seated hatred for the institute. something that might have happened 30 years ago, and I don't know why that's the case. I'd love to understand why and fix it if we can. But that's just me talking personally. The big thing that I want to make, if I was to be elected and there's 7 of us on the board, that we have to be working as a unit and agreeing and presenting consistent message to members and prospective and returning members. I would like to think that there's no infighting with the board. And the other big thing that I think is really needed is support for the committees. Having been in the strategy committee for a few years in name only, it's inactive now. They need to be supported. So you look at the marvellous work that Grant and Co have done with the Spectrum Advisory Committee and the options analysis for the current consultation with the ACMA. You know, the board can't do that by themselves. They need volunteers to help. So supporting those committees is really, really important.
And yeah, and I would encourage everyone who the WIA ballot papers will be coming in this month's, the next, I'll say this month's, the next AR that's coming out, which should be hitting the mailboxes soon. So when that comes, don't forget to check out all the bios of all of the nominees. And again, the link there is wia2021.vk3ye.com. And to make sure that you vote for who you would like to see on the board going forward.
So just to interrupt you, sorry, Hayden, I just see a comment come up on YouTube about the Wyson public safety activities from Z04DE.
Yeah,
that's something I didn't put in my bio, and I did forget about it, and I should have put it in, was my involvement with the local state emergency service that we did, and I was really, really keen. So the SES actually approached the Sunshine Coast years ago to help them do some comms stuff. And then the Southeast region thought, oh, we need one of them too. So they approached me to head that up. And so we became members of the SES and did our damnedest to be involved with helping out the SES with their comms needs. But I can't consider it a success. So I'm going to own that failure that we didn't quite meet the brief, or there was issues with how the state dealt with volunteers. I truly don't know. But that was a really, really interesting exercise to get engaged with the SCS, and you could really, really see that these guys are struggling with their comms with it, just simple things like FM repeaters and which simplex frequencies to use and stuff like that. So we would go out and put portal repeaters up in the right spot, look after them. We built an APRS tracking system for them so we can see where their flood boats are, where the quad bugs are in real time and tactical time. I even had, on an exercise, Lance's exercise, had the copper come over and says, we haven't got this. And said, well, I'll swap you that Mercedes tactical van for that technology. I wasn't particularly keen on that, but that's the sort of stuff it was really, really cool to sort of get that engagement for the local coppers. But unfortunately, it's very, very difficult to get. And then they all say, well, we've all got these things, so why do you need radio? You can just pick up this thing and make a call. And no matter how he explained that, that could go down at a moment's notice, batteries going flat, it didn't fly. So it's sort of we became unused, and I folded it up. But it is still of interest to me that we do need a backstop. But I'm not going to be a doomsday guy. Let's hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, that's good. So thanks for the summary anyway of what you want to bring forward to the WIA, and also for your activities, as you said, into Wyson. So we've coming up on about 55 minutes streaming here. So what we want to do is just get to some of the projects that you've been working on, and we'll do a bit of a tour of your antennas and your gear in the shack. So I'll share my screen. Not sure what photo that we'll start on. I'll just start on the first one that pops up here, and then you can do a bit of a description of it. I try to make this as seamless as possible, but it doesn't always happen sometimes. There we go. So what are we looking at here?
Oh, that was the hat's got a story. That's my Incan Trail hat that I bought when I walked the Inca Trail a few years ago. It was hard walking at 4,000 metres. Man, you can't breathe at that height. So there's Scott VK4CZ in the background, operating 2.4, I think, to Doug VK4EA. And I'm taking a selfie, and that was cold that morning. It's not cold compared to Hobart, it was certainly cold for us, and that's his 2 and 2 his 270 combo antenna is 1296, so it's 36 element. But yeah, we had fun that day. So he took up 1296, 2.4, 3.4, and I took up 5.7 and 10 and 24. But yeah, that was a very, very cold morning. It was a good day. Well, that used to be my work desk. So you can see the old 575 in the background for SOX meters and the 2 rotators for the 2 arrays. And behind my head is 970, 9700. And I'm actually doing some work there. I'm doing a training session with a new supplier of RTU stuff. That was right in the middle of lockdown about April last year.
So. We got some
that's my front dishes. Yeah, so that's in the front.
Does it always look like this, or is this only when it's set up?
No, I would be in dreadful trouble if I did that all the time. So that's the 5.7's in the front. So I've put a preamp right at the feed horn, and that dish goes like stink with a 15-watt amplifier that I got off Alan Devlin VK3XPD. Incidentally, that amplifier and that transverter is the one that broke the record between Lord Howe Island and New Zealand. So it's the same.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, so it's got to preserve the history a bit. The 10 gigs on the yellow dish. Again, preamp at the front. What is
homebrew feed there, is it?
Yeah, it's all. The feeds themselves are from Directive Systems in the United States, but all the mounting stuff, you can see my cable tie effort is all mine, and you can see the preamp in the front there. So there's a DB6NT preamp right at the feed horn, which makes a big difference when you've got a bit of kayaks. And in the NEC dish is the 47 gigs. Yep. And I've got a little horn in there, which I've since taken out. I'm going to order one of the horns that the South Australian guys have organised for that to get the focus better on the Cassegrain. And so that's a 24 gig on the left. Again, best cable tie efforts.
So is that's a 600 millimeter dish?
Yeah, that thing is like a laser. It's amazing how well it works. And the heatsink is holding a 2-watt PA that I bought from i3 APW in Italy. And so that's pointing toward Maitland. So I was up at south of Toowoomba at Preston, where I can't remember his name now. He used to live, and I'm pointing west toward Maitland, where it's 4UH, 3CZ, and 4MIL are located doing the field day where they broke the record to 3.4 gigs to Steve Zettel 1 TBH or 2, Steve Heyman.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's my 10 gig, and you can see so there's a Kern transverter, and that's a down its microwaves 3-watt PA hanging off this heatsink. That thing goes really, really well, actually. It's a great portable setup. But that dish I got from the Sunshine Coast Club, it's suffered a few falls, and I've managed to, it's not looking all those great. And my sums in the back for the focal points. So I've got a MyTech
mini kit
sequencer. Yeah, that's the old sequencer. Yeah, and a W6PQL 28-volt converter. So all that, like you said, you can buy the transverter, and that's only the start of the fun. Yeah, so that's a good illustration of the truck.
Portable setup.
Yeah, so that's my remote area touring setup. So it's an extended wheelbase 105 Land Cruiser that recently had a paint job, which I treated it, and it's a comfortable old bus and has plenty of room. And that's then my new work setup that I have to separate out my working and home arrangements with my hobby arrangements, otherwise I was just never going to come down here. So that's now my work desk, and so that's my work computer and my work zone, and some of the gear that I'm working on the right hand side to get into the system. So
we've got another shot here of your radio desk, and you can see the 9700 there, and
that's a great radio, that thing, and the Open SDR Pi SDR interface on the left hand side. So Justin VK7TW will recognise that. So I'll talk to him about how that works. That interfaces to my HF SDR, and
the rig expert as well. That you've got down there. If anyone wants to send me a rig expert, they can do so.
You're not getting that one. That cost a fortune, I think. So that thing is amazing. Actually, it wasn't a cheap thing to buy, but it's good to 1400 megs, and so for what I do for the 1296 stuff, it was brilliant. Building a couple of beams from that, really, really, really quick, and a couple of Ka-chunk radios in the background too. So there's a DStar radio there, and a DMR radio, and a couple of FM radios,
and a Yaesu 8900 FT-8900 there. quadlander, I think.
Yep, and then there's the chook band radio under the screen, and there's the DMR radio to the right, and the DStar radio sitting on top. And you probably can't see it. Oh yeah, there's the messy
I'll
wrap.
go back for a sec.
No, you're right. Just go to that one. Go to the next one.
Yep.
You can see there's a Codan radio on top of a backdoor modem on the left-hand side on top of the 6-meter radio. And then starting from the top is an ATV transmitter. And there's the positioner for the Austravel system I got for the 10 gig home station I'm putting together. Satellite TV receiver, the set-top box for receiving the ATV repeater. There's the HF SDR with all the mess. A QRO tuner, and that's my HF amplifier that I built from an EB104 palette from Communications Concepts. And then there's holes there for other amplifiers. The one that's down there at the moment is a 2-meter amplifier I built from a TV palette, transmitter palette that Colin Hutchinson VK5, or I can't remember which called some now, organised from ex-Channel O translators in South Australia. So he modified that for me, and I chucked it in a box with a couple of relays, and it works really well. Oh, and you can see the PDP-11 clone top right-hand corner. I've got a bit of a thing for vintage computers as well.
I think that might be the end of the photos. Actually, I'll just double check. Oh no, they're not. For some reason, my thing wasn't skipping past, so I'll just stop the screen share and we'll start again. It stopped skipping through. So we've got your what is it, K9G? What's the
K3NG?
K3NG, yep.
Yeah, he's done a really good job with the firmware on that thing. So it's amazingly flexible. But I bought this platform from an Italian, Spanish supplier, so it makes it easy with a couple of buttons and an LCD and a DB15 for the output. So we've got to take the lid off the MToter and work out how to interface the AC switching stuff. So that's going to go on the roof for the 2.4, 3.4 home station, maybe 5.7 as well.
This is quite a bit of test equipment here.
Oh yeah, that's signal generator at the top and the old clunker spectrum analyzer. So for young punters, don't buy one of these because the switches, the big round knobs, are a special HP device that you can't buy anymore and you can't repair. So once those switches go, you can toss the thing in the bin. And the thing weighs about 45 kilos too, but it does work well. Like I've used it quite a lot. I've got a mixer to take it up to 40 gigs. So it's quite a useful bit of kitty. And then the bottom right is the microwave sweeper. So that goes up to 18 gigs. That's the poor man signal generator for microwave frequencies. But I can do return loss measurements and stuff. And so, for example, when we're doing the 3.4 gig modifications to the grid packs, I use that sweeper with a directional coupler or two and the spectrum analyzer. And that gave us exactly where we needed to go, where we needed to trim and where to go. It was great.
And you've also got, noticed a power meter down there. What does that cover up to?
So the heads I've got are good to 18 gigs.
Yep.
That's the old style HP432A. The sensor heads in those things are very, very delicate, and I've blown up 3 already. Getting a bit too overzealous, but the meters themselves are very, very cheap. So the box you see there is very, very cheap. It's the cable and the sensor. But you can see on the bottom right-hand side is a more modern version of the sensor.
Yep.
Yeah, that's for the other power meter I've got that I've just bought. But definitely, to be able to measure what you can putting out is really, really important, I think.
That's your ATV experiment?
Oh, yeah, this is the digital receiver for the new ATV repeater. So I've just taken it apart and working out where I can pick up the carrier detect lead for turning on the PTT of the transmitter. So it'll take the... Yeah.
And you mentioned backstage though, before we started, you said that the shack's a bit of a mess, but I always say that a messy shack like this is just a sign of productivity. So there's an awful lot of productivity going on here. Yeah,
I'm pretty happy how I've got it set up. Like buried under the bits of paper on the soldering iron is a solder paste dispenser, which is really good for getting consistent blobs of solder on your solder pads when you're doing surface mount. And the top above that is actually a little reflow oven, so I can actually put the reflow surface mount boards if I've got a lot to do, and it really does save a lot of time, and you get excellent results. So I don't get scared with surface mount. That's another shot of the 10 gig front with all the dented up, banged up stuff, but I'm going to rehome that to the MyTech dish. That's a 24 gig, and all dusty from non-use.
I noticed the two fell off on
Yeah.
your...
Yeah, I think I got lazy, didn't get the 2 from the boat shop.
So instead of it being 4 gigs, you just had to
Yeah.
add the extra 2 on the front.
And then,
So I noticed we've got a 705 here, and
yeah, what a great little radio that thing is. That's awesome. It's a big step up from the FT-817.
In one of my videos, I did an activation on 2.4 gigahertz, trying to work across to ZL1. Oh no! Now I've got it. Oh, that's bad. ZL1IU in New Zealand on 2.4 gigs, and using the 705, it's a real step up from what I used with the FT-817 because you can actually see the signals on the waterfall now, and you know where someone is. And yeah, great little radio.
Brilliant little receiver in it. That's absolutely awesome. So, and going from the 9700 to that was like it was almost seamless.
And the fact too that you get HF, you get DStar, you get all those extra features. You get the nice thing I actually like about the 705, which a lot of people may not know, is that it has an inbuilt GPS into it, which you can use to bring up your current position and grid square. So if you end up using it for contesting or roving around, you don't need to check where your grid square is because it will tell you while you're there. And that's very, very handy.
I've used it on DStar. It does work very, very well on DStar. So that's 47 gig transfer top view. You can see some of the plumbing I've got. I've actually got a PA ready to install on top of that relay where the curved bit of waveguide is. So I'll have about 250 milliwatts and 47 gigs, which will make all the difference. But it's work in progress, that thing. And there's only one other operator in Southeast Queensland with 47 gig, and that's Doug VK4EA. So this is the start of the EME setup for 10 gigs. So that's a 1.2 meter offset dish that was ex-satellite internet. And you can see the waveguide switch in the extreme bottom corner and the horn that I've got set up for vertical polarization because I'm going to go after the Europeans first. So that's work in progress. The one that's slow work in progress.
And will this all be on a azimuth elevation type rotator as well?
It is. It's all hidden by the dish, unfortunately, but I've got one of the alpha speed positioners, which that was get the Visa card out for that one, but it's definitely worthwhile because it's they're really, really well built in Poland with worm drives and big heavy motors. So.
And obviously, with an offset dish, your angles are gonna be all over the shop when you mount that. So. And
that's one part of the plan is to get this out. I've got this. You probably can't see it too well, but it's mounted on a timber trolley, so I can wheel it out to the front and start optimizing it on sun noise. It's part of the plan. So it's all adjustable at the moment, but I just haven't had the time to get into it. This is metal machining, so there's a little lathe and a mill that I really love using. I want to learn how to use properly and get I probably need a bigger lathe because I'm starting to really get to the limits of that micro lathe. But to have that facility for microwavers, to be able to mill bits of metal and cut channels out is indispensable. It's really fantastic. I didn't realize just how useful milling machines are, and I just invested in a multifunction welder that got a spool gun and TIG welding torch and stuff like that because I want to do some aluminium welding. So I'm going to teach myself how to do that.
I noticed the Azito PowerX drill in the background there. I
invested heavily in my power tools from Bunnings.
Oh, don't worry. That's what I've actually got a video. One of my first videos on this channel is an Azito PowerX drill review that I did, and it gets very, very popular every now and then for those who like to check out the drills.
The thing is, I can't afford to buy Milwaukee or Apollo or Atlas Copco tools anymore because I just don't do that work professionally.
And they work fine for DIY use. So.
No, my mower and my weed trimmer and my hedge trimmer all use the same batteries.
Yeah, they come with a 5-year warranty as well. So if they break down, you just walk straight back in the store and they'll swap them out for you as well. So
yeah, they good enough for me.
Yeah, same for me too. A little bit of a plug for Bunnings Warehouse, proudly sponsoring the show, of course.
Yeah, they can send us credit now. This is the W6PQL 23 centimeter amplifier that I've nearly finished, but I've installed because I've got to fire it up and do the bias adjustments. So, and I'm planning on putting a preamp, so it's all sequenced. You can't see it, but there's a sequencer in front of the power supply to sequence the preamp, the masthead preamp.
And this runs off 24 volts?
Yeah. No, this is a 240 volt device. So it'll be home station, this one.
Oh, yep. Sorry, I meant the W6PQL
Oh, the
board
pallet.
is a 24
Yeah,
volt device.
Yeah, I'm running it off 28 volts. So.
28, yep.
That's one of the broadcast. So that's a 50 meg broadcast pallet that Colin Hutchison got for us. So he mounted all the combiners and modified the pallet. It's a massive bit of aluminium, and that thing goes like absolute stink. So I get about easily 300 watts out of that thing on 6 meters, on SOX meters, which is nothing what Scott CZ produces, but I'm getting there.
It's not a competition, but we all know that Scott.
Oh well, we've got no time to QRP it out up here this way.
And so that's
that's a 2 meter. That's a 2 meter version. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think actually that's a different spot. That's a different shot of the same pallet, but the 2 meter one's very similar. And that's one of those LTEC power supplies, the HP power supply, the LTEC power supplies. They're remarkably quiet and efficient. Those things, they're great, cheap.
Now I recognise what these are. These
Most
are a couple of Spectrian boards.
Yeah, Pyro Joe sourced Spectrian boards, which this is intended for was intended for a portable. So I was going to run 2 of these in parallel and run them on 12 volts to get more power. But I'm rethinking that about how to do that. So I think I'm going to go back to panels for portable, and so it might be one pallet running on 12 volts, which would be lower power. But
so my Spectrian board that I get, so I had to do a little bit of snowflaking on mine. So for those who may not be familiar with what snowflaking is, it's basically moving along the strip line filters and just trying to tune it for maximum output, best efficiency. And I managed to get out on 12 volts, 25 watts using one of these boards. However, if I bump it up to 24 volts, I end up getting 63 watts out of one of these boards. Yeah. I will make a note, though, that the heatsink that you do have them on, these get ridiculously hot, and that's way too small, those heatsinks.
Yeah, I know that. That's why it's not bolted on there yet, because I know that being Class A, that they're a good generator of heat.
Yeah, I ended up bolting mine to a KL, or just a KL heatsink, a Unilab heatsink. I actually saw off 2/3 of it, and I used 2/3 to fit into a case, and even that got too hot, so I had to put a fan at the front to blow it cold air in, and 2 extraction fans out the back, and it still gets hot. So
yeah, I know that. This is a portable device, and the one I'm going to use for up in the masthead will be running off 240 volts. I'm not too concerned about it. Yeah.
They're perfectly fine if you're not, obviously, with all this stuff, you're not rag chewing on these sort of bands. But for single sideband, they're fine. But I sort of had the idea of running mine on digital modes as well, and I didn't want it burning out on digital. So
there's plenty of other options coming up for 2.4. Like there's a number of options coming up for 2.4 for us, which are probably a little more efficient than these things. These things are getting on. But yeah, I've got 3 of these things, and I intend to use one at home on 28 volts on the roof. But I'll run 240 to it, because I can do that as an electrician. It's one of the good things. I can run my own power to it. Oh, there's a stealth.
It's a 3.4 gig amplifier.
So same thing. This is going to be a portable, but I may put that in the back of the panel, back of a GARC panel, because I've tried to get those GARC things going, and they work for about 6 months, and then they start falling over, and I'm over it. So I'll strip the guts out of the panel, and I'm just using it as an antenna, which is a very, very good antenna, Stanley.
Yeah, I did the same thing too. I ended up swapping mine out for the SG Labs transverter on 3.4, and it goes like a rocket now. So
they were brilliant. Like Tim Dixon did a brilliant job with those things. He really did. Like he deserved his Bunkerwave award that he got at Gippstek a few years ago for the work he did. And they certainly got a lot of people interested in 3.4, which is exactly what Lou Blasco intended, VK3ALB, so I'll give him credit for doing that. He really pushed that.
And definitely my GARC panel is, well, actually I don't even know where it is, but my GARC panel holds the current digital VK record, so it worked for that. So
yeah, when they worked, they're great.
I guess that's a close up there of the ATV receiver.
Yeah, see how that goes.
So these are some of the antennas outside. So what have we got here?
So there's a 6 meter, 3 meter, 3 element, on the bottom, and then 2.4 gig grid pack, which I used barefoot for many, many years and had great success with that. And there's a 23 centimetre Yagi, which is not pointing in the right direction. So after all of our wind and rain we had the last few weeks, it's not pointed the right way. So it's the other two antennas are pointed at our VK4 RBB beacon chain, which is just south, a fair bit south of me. But yeah, during the 23 on 23, the readout on the rotator isn't quite working as well as it should be. But I intend to take that 2.4 gig grid pack down and shorten that bit of pole down and put a mastered preamp on the 23 and improve that, because it's not a particularly long length of the 4-50, but it's still long enough to get a bit of attenuation. So I want to improve that signal noise a bit. This is the temporary VK4 RTT beacon antennas. So folded dipole on its side and a quick and dirty homemade 6 metre dipole that I made out of tube out of Bunnings. Oh, and there's a 2 metre J-pole up there too. So I was swapping between the J-pole and the folded dipole when I had VK4 RTT on test here. So during the Tropo season and SPAD season over Christmas, I tried to run it as much as I can from home. We were supposed to be able to put this up in Mount Cootha, but that's not working out for us at the moment, so we're looking for another spot for it. And that's the beacon here. Yeah, yep. So that's the VK4 RTT. So that's been spotted in its current form all over the country in New Zealand. So it does work well. And thanks to George Lucas VK4 AMG. Thank you, Mr. Hayden.
I'm your call sign man tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Who did a marvelous job in rebuilding that for us. So I've got.
So this is GPS locked, but does this also do digital modes as well?
Does JT modes and OW, CW as well, interspersed. So JT65C, I think, or D on 6, and then the other JT modes on the other band. Can't remember exactly, but yeah, that it does work well. It kept my back shed pretty warm with all the fans going. So.
Another glorious selfie in the shack.
Oh yeah, do I like taking selfies? No, I do not. Oh, that's the truck. So I'm building that to be a complete, like a remote area tourer. So it's getting on a bit, and that was, you can see how wet it is around the place. We had some amazing rain last week.
So there's some more Yagis.
Yeah, so 70. I built the 70 and the 2 metre antennas that are shown there, and I bought a TH Junior, high gain TH Junior. I bought from a local ham who was upgrading to a bigger one. So yeah, thanks James VK4TJF for selling me that antenna. It's a tri-bander. I'm on a very, very small block. I'm on 400 square metres, so I can't have massive antenna arrays. So I've been instructed that antennas aren't to be in the backyard; they're to be on the roof, out of sight. So. Shall we?
She who will be obeyed. I noticed the cable ties haven't been trimmed either.
It's probably the wrong way around. They should be up to stop the birds from roosting on them.
That's okay. So this is you on a boat?
Yeah, this is my other passion is sailing. So this is a bare boat in the Whitsundays. So we do that every year. So that's a lovely 47-foot French catamaran that we've rented for 10 days with a few friends, and go cruising around the Whitsundays and eat lots of food and drink way too much wine. It's an awesome way to spend a few days.
So let's just having a look back through some of the comments. I couldn't quite view the chat as we were showing those photos, but I'd like to say hello to, we've got VK4BDE, we've got VK3IK, who asked, what power supply do you use for the 28 volts?
Just a Meanwell eBay special, but definitely a name brand. I didn't go for the cheapy Chinese one. I went for a Meanwell quality switch mode power supply.
And hello to Paul Hastings as well, who is joining us from Florida, which it must be in the wee early hours of the morning in Florida.
It would be quite time difference at the moment.
Yeah, so thank you
for
joining.
Florida a couple of years ago. It's fun place.
It's as you say, the time difference is quite extreme at the moment. Well, thank you, Peter, for joining me tonight on the channel and for going through all of that this evening. It's been good to chat this evening. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we close off this evening? And
no, I've talked enough. I'm not much of a politician person. I just want to get in and do some work and get some stuff done. So yeah, my platform is really just. I think there was a comment there about transparency, and that's one thing I'm really passionate about, is to making sure that we are, it's because the institute serves its members. They're there for the members, so don't disrespect the members. That's something that's really, really fundamental to my core.
There was another comment there too, in regards to defending frequency allocations should be the top priority for all representative groups, and that's
absolutely. I think it's really undervalued, the work that the WA have done with attending the ITU and the CEPT and the in Geneva, the very expensive trips they've had to fund in the past to defend Australia's interests at those meetings is really, really important. So the stuff that Peter Young, VK4EA is doing with the IAU Region 3 stuff is absolutely vital for us to maintain our bands. So Peter needs all the support in the world to make sure he can be an effective voice for Australian amateurs in that field. And Dale Hughes, VK1DSH, has done some amazing work in those meetings. They're probably the driest things you'll ever go to. I've been in many standards types discussions all over the world, and it's not exciting stuff, but it's really important to make sure you're there and representing amateurs. And I don't think people really understand the cost and the challenges of doing that. And it's probably not so bad now in the lockdown because you can do everything remotely. But to send someone to stay in Geneva for 2 weeks is not a cheap exercise. I've been to Geneva many times, and I was glad I didn't pay for the hotels, man. It's stupid to go over there. And so that sort of stuff, I think, is not really recognised well by people who have been members of the WA or who have an issue with the WA. It's really, really important for us to be there, as well as the representation to the ACMA. And people, I think, misunderstand what the ACMA is all about. The regulator, they don't make the rules; they regulate the rules. And it's the politicians that makes the rules. So we need to be in those politicians' faces and saying, this is us. We're here.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that, and yeah, for sure, that's right. A lot of the decisions that are being made are a little bit higher up, and sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to be caught up in all of that. So
and it's not my skill set, but I would certainly support that sort of representation. I've got no problem sitting down with a politician and telling him he's an idiot. I don't have any problem doing that at all.
I think that's just an Australian thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Luckily, we've got a pretty strong democracy. We're allowed to do that sort of stuff. But
yeah, that's right. And sometimes you don't cop flack for it too. So you actually find people agreeing.
You tend not to get shot or go to prison, so that's great.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. All right. Well, thank you, Peter, for joining on this evening, and thank you, everyone, for joining in on the stream tonight. Don't forget, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe to the Ham Radio DX channel if you haven't already done so. So thank you, Peter, this evening, and we'll see you all later on. 73 for now. And
thank you, Hayden, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
No, that's fine, Peter. It's great to be able to talk to amateurs like you, and it's always good to just have a look in people's ham shacks and see what's going on in there. So I
really should tidy it up, but anyway, I probably won't find anything anyway if I do that.
That's okay. All right, 7-3. Goodbye, everyone.
Cheers.